Welcome to another edition of The Great Speech. Who wrote The Great Speech? It's The Big Speech. This is The Big Speech podcast. The Great Speech. Come on. All right. I'm your host, Landon Free. With me today, our speech picker of the day is MJ Schaefer, Michael Jordan Schaefer. We're high on The Last Dance.
Great to be here, Landon. It was a great documentary I put together.
Yeah, you're right. And his arch adversary, Ross Magic Johnson.
Ooh, on mute, on mute.
Kids are asleep and I'm happy to be here.
And finally, Matt Charles Schultz.
Charles, I get Charles Barkley. what the heck?
Hold on. That's not Charles Barkley. That is the famous cartoonist of Snoopy.
Oh gosh. Oh, that makes it a lot better. Great. Okay, we're good.
In that case.
So, Mike's our guy. New quad here. We're fake speeches, movie speeches of the fictional variety. What do we talk about today?
Okay. The speech I have picked for today is Rocky Balboa, inspirational speech. The speech that he famously gave to his son in the sixth Rocky film of the franchise. All right. Every Rocky film sort of has at least one, sometimes two speeches that really sort of serve as the major transition point for a particular character, either Rocky or someone close to him in this film. And in this particular film, as we're going to be talking about later on, the transition takes place between with Rocky's son. All right. So Rocky's son is a little bit embarrassed because old dad wants to get back into the boxing ring at the ripe old age of 60 plus, and his son is a little bit embarrassed about it. Now, what kind of brought my life into the Rocky films, the Rocky franchise? Schaefer's, we sort of grew up on Rocky. I remember around fourth grade, it's kind of that age where we started checking out a Rocky film every Saturday and kind of working through them. They were very sort of impactful to me. So with those things being the case, I thought it would be fun to start off with a speech from a Rocky film that kind of touches with people of our generation in a special way. And for those listening out there, our generation is early 30s. All right, just so there's no doubt. But I think there's a lot of messages in here that can sort of transcend that. So before I start rambling any further here, let's look at the speech itself here. I'm gonna do my best to kind of capture that same power of Rocky Balboa. Rocky says, "You ain't going to believe this, but use the fit right here. I'd hold you up and say to your mother, this kid's going to be the best kid in the world. This kid's going to be better than somebody ever knew. And you grew up good and wonderful. It was great just watching you. Every day, it was like a privilege. Then the time comes for you to be your own man and take on the world, and you did. But somewhere along the line, you changed. You stopped being you. You let people stick a finger in your face and tell you you're no good. And when things got hard, you started looking for something to blame, like a big shadow. Let me tell you something you already know. The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It is a very mean and nasty place, and it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. You, me, or nobody is going to hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done. Now, if you know what you're worth, then go out and get what you're worth. But but you gotta be willing to take the hit and not pointing fingers saying you ain't where you are because of him or her or anybody. Cowards do that, and that ain't you. You're better than that. Bam. Rocky lays it all down right there. Of course, his son can't respond to that. And without going in too many details, right here, Rocky's son ends up joining his dad in sort of a training sequence that doesn't just change Rocky Balboa's body, but sort of changes his son too. So, um, Ross, can you did a little bit of research here, or maybe if anyone else has anything to add on this question too, is Rocky Balboa, of course, takes place 16 years after Rocky 5, a big departure from the first five films, which came out every few years. How did that exactly come about? What got us into this position?
Yeah, so looking into it a little bit, because pretty big fan of the Rocky movies, but have never really given much thought to why each one was made, or maybe what was going on in Stallone's mind. But just to kind of set up a little bit of this, I feel like this film in particular seems to be something that Stallone kind of wanted to say about himself, even at the time. So uh, as probably most people know, and Mike has referenced, this was the sixth movie in the film, but the Rocky films are kind of Stallone's baby. So of the eight films, I believe he wrote either six or seven of the eight himself. He created the character himself. I think he directed four of the eight films. So Sylvester Stallone is tied very, very deeply in with Rocky Balboa. So, um, just so you guys know, so Rocky Five, which I would say is pretty widely regarded as the least popular of the films, I didn't quite realize how low it was. So I just did a quick Rotten Tomatoes search, and this is what pops up when speaking about Rocky Five. Rocky Five's attempts to recapture the original's working class grit are as transparently phony as each of the thuddingly obvious plot developments in a misguided installment that sent the franchise flailing into long term limbo. Received a 29%. Okay.
Out.
So pretty widely accepted as not very good. So that's the film itself, and then we look at Sylvester Stallone's acting career after Rocky Five. Um, he wasn't doing very well either. So this is in an article I found online. He had a painful struggle with the industry that once recognized him as one of the biggest box office draws in the world, but rejected him for some 15 years following the 1990 flop Rocky Five. So this is now in Stallone's own words, describing how extinct he felt during these years. Stallone says, I was going the way of the dodo bird and the Tasmanian tiger. So not in the film, obviously we see an aging Rocky Balboa, doesn't really know what to do, doesn't really know where his identity is if he can't fight. And then, very closely paralleled at the time, we have a Sylvester Stallone, who once was this huge name, huge action star, Rocky, Rambo, doesn't really know what's going on either. So that's kind of where the films were, I guess. The Rocky 5 was supposed to be the end of the franchise. Then Sylvester Stallone talking a little bit about why he made Rocky Balboa. So again, Rocky 5 was supposed to be the end of the franchise, but just this is what Stallone says about it. I felt obligated to try and end the series the way it should have ended. I was very negligent with 1990's Rocky 5. It didn't leave anyone with any sense of hope. It was reflective of where I was at the time. That bothered me. So pretty much Stallone's acting career not doing very well. Rocky 5 didn't receive very good reviews and kind of closely parallels him. And I think it was interesting that um just this sense of, I guess, identity kind of wrapped up in this guy trying to kind of have a second chance or a second shot, which obviously is themed up very well with the Rocky films. So anyway, that's a little bit about what happened after Rocky 5 and why Stallone and Rocky felt like kind of they needed a second chance.
Oh, man.
Rocky 5 sucked. That was terrible, terrible movie.
Something else, sorry, real quick, just to flip in there quickly. So Rocky is supposed to be the series. I mean, to all of us, right? It's inspirational. Like we look forward. It's this champion for a huge part, apparently, of the filmmaking of Rocky 5. He died at the end of Rocky 5 in the street. And then it said close. I don't know where exactly, but close to the completion of filming, they kind of decided to switch that in the script. So yeah, don't really know what was in Stallone's mind at the time, but it does seem somewhat doesn't mesh with, I guess, the overall feel of what Rocky Balboa is, or who Rocky Balboa is.
Boy, was that a big save. Thanks,
That would have
Ross.
that
Magic
would have been
Johnson.
an even worse ending to an already terrible movie.
I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole of the nature of Rocky 5, but I do, in fairness, want to give a few shout outs to the film. One being the song that Elton John wrote for the film, Measure of a Man. Great song. Um, and two, even this film has a speech. I suggest you go check out the speech between Rocky and Adrian upon their return to his old neighborhood. But those are topics for another day, I suppose. Um, so let me pose a question to some of you guys here. Is there any example of a speech like this from someone close to you that just sort of rocked you a little bit and sort of significantly altered the trajectory of your life?
I don't know. I don't know if there's ever one speech, but I just so I guess a little bit of background for the audience who may or may not know my story. Um, I was in physical therapy school, right? So graduated from undergrad and was in this doctorate program to become a physical therapist. And about midway through, I began uh, discerning entering the seminary to become a Catholic priest, which would be a complete departure from my current trajectory career-wise. And I do remember, um, gosh, I mean, I suppose I couldn't like say one line or one phrase or like some sort of mantra. Um, but I definitely remember like several really challenging conversations I had with a priest I was talking to about this decision at the time. That really challenged me. It's like, yeah, at some point, if you're gonna follow God's will for your life and you're gonna do something like this, you got to be like, you've got to challenge yourself, and you really have to push yourself to do things you never thought you would do, and you have to be willing to take criticism for a lot of people who mean a lot to you. And yeah, I think just really uh, a lot of those conversations just were challenging, um, and helped me confront a lot of fears that I had regarding that decision. Um, so yeah, I think that that's definitely like a pivotal moment where I kind of had some sort of experience like this, maybe not quite as compact, and concise as this one speech was, but certainly a similar effect.
Yeah, that's a good one there for sure. The example that comes to my mind is I think some of you guys have heard this before, but when I was a senior in high school during track season, man, I was really excited because I thought this is my season to break the school's 2 mile record. And I got sort of lamed up with an IT band injury. That details for the PTs in the crowd. And and so anyway, obviously my training and racing didn't go how I wanted with that being the case. But one day after a track meet late in the season, so there's just probably 3 or so meets left. And I was sort of like already having my head between my knees, like whatever, I'm just not gonna really worry about it. I didn't have a good track season and that's it. I'll still run a lot in college on my own. My mom, she calls me into the kitchen after our track meet that night and she says, Michael, I don't know whether I should cry with you or tell you to get your head out of your ass because you're running scared out there. That's not the Michael that I know. And anyway, she obviously swapped some more words after that of constructive criticism and such. But anyway, I did end up getting my head out of aforementioned ass and running pretty well, even though I was sort of ready to just sort of toss in the towel because I figured like, yeah, hey, it's just a few meets left. So that's definitely one Rocky-esque speech in my life. And my mom, whenever I bring that up, she always sorts of like rolls her eyes like it was no big deal or something. But it definitely was. So
How do you run scared or run timid? What
run scared.
what allows one to get their deeper horsepower on the
Great
track?
question. Um, Running a race, especially in high school, requires such a high level of pain that it's very easy to run at a level that feels hard, but is not actually your hardest. And it shows in the times because you're not making any aggressive moves out on the track that are going to move you from pack B to pack A. So stuff like that. You end up running a 10:30 instead of a 10:15. That's what it looks like. So, Landon or Ross, do you guys have any stories sort of vulnerable? No. Okay, just
To
cut
be totally honest,
that
yeah,
out.
I don't feel like I have that defining. At least nothing comes to mind offhand. So nothing has. I don't
Every,
have the defining speech given to me yet.
everything I've read about Ross, I mean, he just came out of the gate. As soon as you put him on a field, a track, a court, it was just 100 miles an hour until the buzzer rang. Like,
Pure Johnson
the
Fury.
limits.
That's right.
And he left his opponents catching their breath metaphorically while he was literally catching his breath as a recovering asthmatic.
A recovering asthmatic. I don't have a lot else to add to that.
For a small town newspaper, that's a pretty epic headline.
No, the not to get into this too much. My favorite headline ever written about me was just Doug's boy. So it's very proud of that one.
Um, okay. So great Rocky speech here. What are some of the other speeches from Rocky films that stick out to you guys? And also sort of hone in if you can, just from best memory of maybe a brief message from any of those speeches that you recall.
I'm gonna have to go with when he's talking to Adrian in Rocky 4 on the stairwell when he's decided he's gonna fight Ivan Drago after his Drago has killed his best friend Apollo Creed. Um, just kind of, I guess, a little bit to, I mean, I think all these, we're kind of talking about similar things, so maybe they're all going to tie in with one another, but a little bit of Mike's kind of running scared. I just think about, that how, I don't know if everyone's familiar with that speech. I don't know if we want to relay each Rocky speech, but when he says that he's going to have to be willing to die himself, just how committed, I guess, yeah, just how all in Rocky is and what he's willing to do and to give up for in that space, that fight. I thought that was pretty powerful. So Rocky 4, Rocky on the stairs talking to Adrian.
Love it. Classic. Definitely the best training montage of any film for sure.
By far the best training montage. And I think that
Watching that training montage just makes me want to go work out. Like, and I don't mean like work out like jog. I want to like throw stuff and like just run into a wall and just, yeah, great job. Great montage.
All right, I'm the Rocky novice here. I've seen the first one.
It's about boxing, Landon.
Really. Can we clarify that for the viewers? This is the boxing movie series, right? Um, so is four the best one? I feel like is four like the one on the steps at the
That's a
Philadelphia.
Oh my gosh. It's Philadelphia steps. You can see those in Rocky 1, 2, 3, 5, and Rocky Balboa. So every
But-
film except for Rocky, they play a major role.
But isn't four like the best? Isn't that when we got Eye of the Tiger and those songs?
Eye of the Tiger was Rocky 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was when Eye of the Tiger first appeared.
All right.
The Rocky, like the kind of the typical Rocky training theme appears in all of the movies, but that like first appeared in Rocky 1. That kind of iconic scene of him like pumping both fists in the air on the Philadelphia steps, that first happened in Rocky 1, and they've kind of replicated that scene like pretty much throughout except for Rocky 4.
Well, but Rocky 4, the Philadelphia steps become too small for him.
He needs an entire
Then he
mountain.
climbs mountains for his
An entire freaking mountain.
and spars with pine trees with
Just-
an axe.
It's the Philadelphia Museum of Art, just to put a point on that exact building. I've walked by them. I've been there, but I haven't taken in all the movies just yet.
Is there a Rocky statue there in real life? Or is that just a movie thing?
Yeah, there is one there.
Great question. There is the same Rocky statue in Philly, but it's not at the steps. It's like in a park nearby, I believe. How exactly did the Rocky character come to be? Who is the inspiration for it? I'm reminded of this question because in a short clip from a show on ESPN, a channel that I never watch, it described how Rocky's character came from a real guy. Anyone know that real story? Who is the real Rocky?
I'm blanking on the name, but if I recall correctly, he was fighting Muhammad Ali, and similar to a theme in Rocky 1 and Rocky Balboa and Creed, he goes the distance. Just doesn't win the fight per se, but he wins in a way as it goes the distance, and maybe when he shouldn't have.
Ross, I believe you're talking about Chuck Hepner, the man who fought Muhammad Ali, and
It's Chuck Wepner, I believe.
whatever his name is, but yeah, apparently this guy sued Sylvester Stallone later on, and I guess they had some sort of settlement or something. But yeah, rumor has it Sylvester Stallone spent the next 3 days just writing furiously after attending that fight, and that was Rocky 1.
Yep, that's absolutely true. 15 rounds Chuck Wepner went with Muhammad Ali. Pretty extraordinary. There is a lot of striking similarities to Stallone's character and the Chuck. Chuck also was just sort of a local stud in terms of boxing. And he was fighting Ali for the heavyweight title, so pretty incredible here.
So can I just touch on one thing? So I feel like Rocky, it's almost like he almost reminds you of it's like a myth, like a story, a fictional story that's given to like tell certain truths about humanity or people. So I think, a lot of people identify with Rocky. But just in case there's other novices listening, Matt, give us just a quick, or someone, I guess, give us a quick, why is Rocky this mythical figure in our really our world today?
I mean, I think if you think about America, like America is somewhat of an underdog story, right? So a bunch of colonists are getting, overtaxed on their tea. We start a revolution and start our own country, right? Fight against like the greatest military force in the world, and we put up enough of a fight that they leave us alone, and we start our country, right? So I think at the foundation of American literature and folklore, like underdog stories are a huge deal. And I think Rocky is kind of the consummate underdog, right? So he had a bum career up to age 30, right? He's 30 years old when he fights Apollo Creed in the first one. He's poor. He's abandoned. People are calling him a loser over and over again. He's injured throughout the movies. As soon as the second movie, doctors are telling him he should stop fighting, otherwise he's going to go blind. But never goes blind. And even if you just watch him box, like maybe it's just a movie, but like he has very little skill, like very little skill. He is a terrible boxer, but he has so much heart, right? And that's evident in the training. It's evident in his fighting style. It's evident in the story and the speeches and all of this. So I think the underdog stuff is a huge deal. Like people relate to that. He gives us hope. And is also just a really simple beacon of wisdom, right? So and there are scenes kind of in each and every movie where he has just some sort of simple line, simple type of wisdom or quotes to live by. It really is a very quotable series of movies. And I think something you mentioned earlier, Ross, with the speech that you really liked from Rocky IV is he's got this very like masculine, but not like cartoonish over the top disposition, just as like a daring person, a man who's daring. He's a protector, hardworking, wants to provide for his family. Yeah, and I just think there are a number of speeches that really like speak to all of these like very desires that everyone has to some degree, but I would say desires that kind of reach the masculine heart very particularly.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that back up, Ross. The idea of myths that I made some notes on, and how I related that idea in terms of something I'd read elsewhere or heard elsewhere was on Jordan Peterson's lectures on the Bible. Does anyone listen to any of that series?
For sure. Those are
Yeah.
really good.
Yeah, and he brings up this idea of truth, and he articulates the concept of truth in a way that is both very compelling, um, and I think a little bit more open-minded actually than our modern day Western world tends to conceive of truth. And he articulates it this way in that truth that we find in religion and literature and mythology, they have a very objective way of touching on something inside of being a person. They're in a sense sort of like evidence of the certain objective elements of humanity. And if we aren't intentional in investing and studying what they have to say, then we're essentially going to be abandoning or giving up certain parts of our humanity. I actually don't think he used exactly those words. I'm going to kind of give myself some credit for expanding upon Peterson's ideas. But the point is that I think that to connect this back to Rocky here is that, yeah, there is something just very objective and fundamental about the Rocky character. I mean, compare him to I don't know, what's another big sort of very masculine character in a film from the past 30 years? Anyone? Yeah.
If we're going, this isn't a character in film, but if we're talking like Jordan Peterson biblical commentary thing, certainly like a David and Goliath thing, which is like a very archetypal figure. But I know that wasn't what you're going for, but just the stuff you mentioned about Peterson, I think is, I don't know. I think there's part of the reason that's a fundamental thing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Is Rocky the ultimate underdog? Like what's a bigger underdog than Rocky? Is that the definition?
The underdog needs to be like believably an underdog, right? I mean, they can't be so far an underdog that it's not believable, and they can't be so much of a not underdog that They're not an underdog. So, yeah, I mean, I think Rocky sort of hits it on the head. He is the epitome of an underdog. The kind of oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I feel like why Rocky. I mean, we kind of like why it's such a cool like why people I think relate to him as an underdog is because obviously the film, again using a myth to tell something like a truth or I guess if you will, but it uses boxing. But and obviously I wouldn't go so far to say as the Rocky movies aren't about boxing, but um, I mean, I think it's more so it touches a little bit deeper. No, it's not just that he's the underdog in the boxing match. It's that kind of like Matt referenced earlier. He's this bum. He's this guy on the street. He's poor. People call him a loser. But like he knows that he's worth more than that. So boxing is the outlet he uses to show that. But I think at its core, it's more about that than the underdog boxer. Um, and then I will throw out there too, I kind of agree. The one thing I kind of laugh about Rocky Balboa as a film is, right, you said you can't be so much of an underdog that it's not believable. Rocky 1, you find some boxer that maybe he just was never given a shot. So like maybe it's legit. But Rocky Balboa, I would question if a 60-year-old man could go toe to toe with the world champion of boxing and not get
You
knocked out.
couldn't, Ross, at 60, but Rocky could. And for the listeners out there, or even people among us who have not seen the entire film of Rocky Balboa, who will remain unmentioned, um, Mason the Line Dixon broke his hand on Rocky Balboa's hip in the second round. So that sort of clarified the realism of the fight.
That only slightly makes it more believable. He's 60 years old.
So in an ironic way, I do want to again sort of revisit the idea of the realism of Rocky Balboa and contrast it with the non-realism of the first film. Because what I mean by that is this: the first film is non-realistic in the sense that no one other than Chuck Wepner and Rocky are going to be offered a chance to fight the heavyweight champion of the world when they're really not in a position to do that, right? Um, but what's realistic in Rocky Balboa, arguably fighting a man who's 1/3 of your age, but less arguably feeling like a shadow, right? That Rocky kind of intuits his son is feeling. And how you go about responding to that in the most human and the most authentic and the most enduring way possible, right? Um and so I think it's Rocky's son's character, Robert, he gets obviously the most attention in this film than any other film. Well, Rocky 5 sort of, but we already addressed that. It would be sort of an interesting story is how Robert went about responding to the speech, not just after this film, but in the period of time after the film. I had said two contradictory things. How Robert responded to his father's speech in the years afterwards, right? Because, you know, responding what his dad says isn't about going and training hard for 3 months, is rather this incremental sort of change in attitude and disposition here. Um,
So I guess we could talk about it a little bit then. If we're going to ask how Robert responded, right? So he had these feelings of he's kind of been overshadowed. He has trouble forging his own identity, doesn't really know how to find his place in life because of he blames his father, but obviously Rocky's speech kind of puts that to rest. How do I guess, I mean, Mike, you chose this speech for a reason. Do you feel like it will impact the way you, I don't know, move about, getting ready for the future or moving forward in life?
yeah, great question for sure. So I'm looking right now at Matt's notes from a quote from Mother Teresa where it says, God does not demand success, he demands faithfulness. And I think that message really ties in well to what Rocky was saying here. So, I see this speech and what Mother Teresa said there, and the way that a life of prayer, good friends, staying physically healthy, performing well in my job, that they all sort of like form this patchwork. And that this particular speech from Rocky that, every once in a while I'll check out on YouTube, sort of give me a boost, that they all sort of fill a particular patchwork of explaining that this is how life ought to be. This is how you ought to respond to life. So yeah, that's sort of how feel affected by this particular speech, if that makes sense. Um, what about you guys? Any small interesting ways that this or something like the speech or something like this speech affects you?
I mean, I think the Mother Teresa quote I posted that I thought was kind of tied in. I saw it tied in a little bit differently. Um, More or less, so like, I mean, the whole Rocky series, it's the underdog story, the underdog phenomena. Obviously, Rocky ends up successful, but but it's not about being successful. Like that's kind of what the movie is about. The movie is about um, not so much this is only worth it if you win the world championship of boxing. The movie's about this is what you like. You can end up in a better place in your life if you really want it, right? No matter what. And that's like what this speech gets at. And I think really kind of wraps the series up like really, really well in that, Rocky had his own shadows, so to speak. Robert said he feels like he's living in his dad's shadow. Rocky had his own shadows, but, they're different. The shadows were the things that are haunting him and keeping him down. Um, and for Rocky, it was his lack of success, right? But that's not, in Mother Teresa's quote, that's not what God wants. He just wants faithfulness. He wants, you know, basically dedication and the commitment to something. Yeah, and so that's kind of what the tie-in between just the Rocky series in general, this speech in particular, and then what Mother Teresa says. And I think it is a really hope-giving um, idea and something that I think we can all live by.
Yeah, it's interesting that the legacy of Rocky's character that you see in Rocky 5, Rocky Balboa, or Creed 1 and Creed 2, that they actually sort of celebrate that very idea that Rocky is still the hero, but he no longer lives in the big mansion, but rather he's still sort of sharing his gifts, by training these new fighters. You saw in the post-credit scene of Creed 2 going to find his son again. So it's sort of neat to see how the films do sort of celebrate that idea, sort of in contrast with other films.
And I think that's actually why Rocky won. So Rocky 1 won the Academy Award for Best Picture. None of the other Rocky movies were even nominated. But I think part of the reason why Rocky won the Best Picture is because of it gets at like this really deep idea, right? Because he didn't succeed ultimately in winning the heavyweight championship, but he was faithful as it comes. He was as faithful as all get out in terms of just enduring the punishment that Apollo Creed gave him, enduring the training, taking a fight on short notice. Um, yeah, like I think there's, and as well as all like the personal stuff with um, pursuing Adrian, who is also perceived as this loser, right? Dealing with her leech brother Paulie, and he's faithful to all of these people, And I think it's really cool that when he eventually gets married, if you guys remember the wedding ceremony he had with like 5 people there. I don't know. There are all these really like faithful moments where he just like, just really sticks with his people. Um, but anyway, like this first one, like because there wasn't the success, there wasn't like the fairy tale ending. I think that's partly what makes that one like, yeah, that's why that was the best picture that year and why the other ones were.
How about we finish things up? We'll run around the horn or run around the ring, kind of staying the theme here. Um, the speech doesn't have an actual title. If you ask Google, it would say Rocky Balboa inspirational speech. So not quite a title that packs the same punch as Rocky's words. So to finish things up, while we run around the ring and you give it the title that you think it deserves. And let's start with shortest to tallest. Ross Magic Johnson, number 32, Los Angeles Lakers. What do you got?
Keep moving forward.
Awesome. And coming in at 6 feet, 0.5 inches, small forward for the Snoopy cartoon, Matt Charles Schultz. What do we got?
You nailed my height, by the way. Um, if YouTube were to come up with a title, it would be Rocky Balboa destroys millennials, destroys in all caps. But if I were to come up with a name for this, um, I might say, um, gosh, I like the shadow language. Let's go with dis- I'll come up with something later. Come back to me.
Matt, I think I love your little YouTube reference, Rocky Balboa destroys
Destroys
millennials. I
millennials.
think that's it. That's your title.
All right,
And
go for it.
coming in at a 6 feet, 2.75 inches. He
Also,
loves
I think nailed it. I think that's right on the doctor's orders.
he loves the biggest club in his golf bag, Mr. Landon Free. What have you got to name the speech?
So it's really in your face. I mean, he pulls his son and, I don't know, it's probably the ultimate pep talk. I feel like, several coaches have, said similar things. But the second paragraph is a little tempered. I mean, so like, now if you know what you're worth, then go out and get what you're worth. Like, that's very mild. I mean, most things are like you can achieve anything, it's all possible. So that second part's a little tempered. It's realist. So just a simple mm, tempered pep talk. I don't like it. This is honest. But
Get what you're worth, man. Get your bread.
Okay, and your starting shooting guard for the 1993 Chicago Bulls, Michael Jordan Schaefer, 6 feet 2 inches, 3/4 as well. Um, I'm going to go with get what you're worth, but you gotta take the hit. Okay, I think that is the title that Google needs to get in there. So, um,
I like it. I like it.
I don't know who's in charge of Google. I know Mark Zuckerberg, you're in charge of Facebook. So why don't you go ahead and contact the Google guys or girls and get that worked out for us. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to hand the mic over to Landon to sign us out. It's been a pleasure talking Rocky with you, talking big stuff, and I cannot wait to chat again in a couple of weeks.
That's our speech.
Boom.